Good morning to everyone. I would like you to look around and just greet the people around you, whether there's other in their house or none. Just say hi and happy to see you. You know what? We can really rejoice with the little blessings that we have been receiving, and sometimes we take water for granted. And now we rejoice for the little drops of water that we receive. Before anything else, I would like to thank Pastor Aaron and of course Mom for your love for this church. When I was a young man, I would visit UBC. I've been here for a number of times. I know a number of people, young people, used to be young people in this church. Now they are much wiser, hopefully. And also for your love for our country, and most importantly, for your love and commitment to God and His kingdom. And I think you are so blessed to have this wonderful couple to pastor you in such a season of their lives where they are a lot wiser and more sensitive, not necessarily stronger, but with a lot more wisdom and a lot more lessons in life. So thank you for your commitment to God and to this church. I was asking Pastor Aaron regarding the theme for this Sunday, and he told us all about faith. And I'm sure that most of you have heard so many sermons about faith. You have read books on faith. You have read Hebrews 11 a number of times. But my intention for the day is to simply to remind you of the non-negotiables of life. What is important? The things that we should pursue, the things that should be number one in our lives. And I think it is important for us to understand that God has a wonderful plan for our lives. Can you say to the person seated beside you, God has a wonderful plan for your life? Parang kulang po yung energy. Can you say it a little louder? God has a wonderful plan for your life. That's much, much better. You know what? The God that we're serving, and if we can put it in our PowerPoint, the God that we're serving is a God of revelation and continues to reveal Himself and takes pleasure, next slide, takes pleasure in doing so. I would like to make it clear that that is the very intention of God, and that is to reveal Himself. Not to hide Himself from us, but for us to understand that God has a wonderful plan for you and for me. In Psalms it says, the heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of His hands. If you will take your time and pause for a while and look around you and look at the skies at night, you'll begin to see that there's a God who is in control. In fact, people have said that God is a pure mathematician. What is the meaning of that? Well, according to a British physicist, he said, the universe appears to have been designed by a pure mathematician. If the distance between the moon and the earth would change, would vary, it would be very destructive for all of us. If the speed of the rotation of the earth would change, it would be destructive for you and for me. If the temperature would change, +2, -2, all of us will be affected. In fact, all of us will be gone. But God in His love and God in His grace, He has provided this wonderful place we call earth And his intention is to reveal that he is a God of love. I don't know exactly what you are going through today. If you are in a good place, we celebrate with you. If you're struggling, God is present in this place, and he would like to intervene in your situation. Even in John 17:25-26, it says, "O righteous Father, the world doesn't know you, but I do. And these disciples know you sent me. I have revealed," take note of that, "you to them, and I will continue to do so. Then your love for me will be in them, and I will be in them." The creation is all about God's revealing himself to all of us. God would like to reveal who he is. Jesus came to reveal the Father to you and to me. It is the work, it is the ministry. And in fact, it is my prayer that every time we attend Sunday service, there will be a fresh revelation of who God is to you and to me. In 1 Corinthians chapter 2, and by this time I need to use my glasses, I'm getting older, verse 10. "But God has revealed them to us through his Spirit. For the Spirit searches all things," yes, the deep things of God. So you will notice that when we go through the pages of Scripture, it is all about God revealing himself. And the question is, do we see? Do we understand? Are we changed? In fact, every time we read the Scripture, every time we hear the preaching of the Word, when we go through a situation in life, we have to ask ourselves, am I seeing the handiwork of God? Am I understanding? Am I being changed? Because that is the very intention of God for you and for me. In Mark chapter 4, verses 35-41, it says, "The day when evening came, he said to his disciples, 'Let us go over to the other side,' leaving the crowd behind. They took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat, so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, 'Teacher, don't you care if we drown?' He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, 'Quiet, be still.' Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, 'Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?' They were terrified and asked each other, 'Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him.'" When we look at this passage, it is so easy for us to be sidetracked by the miracle, by the wind and the waves being still. I believe that this passage goes beyond the miracle. It goes beyond Jesus' authority to control the waves and the sea. I believe that this story is all about Jesus revealing himself to the disciples. So the question is, who is he? Or today, may I ask, who is he to you? Who is Jesus to you in your situation? This has been the question of the disciples 2,000 years ago. And even up to now, people are asking, who is he? Who are you? And Jesus would like to reveal himself to you and to me. One of the things that I've noticed is this. Something will always happen when we encounter Jesus. I will repeat. When we encounter the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, the Alpha and Omega, the one we call Lord, something will always have to break. Something will always have to happen. And if you look at the picture, you cannot remain neutral. Try driving while your gear is neutral. Nothing will happen. It's either you go forward or you go the other way. So every time we encounter Jesus, something has to happen. And looking at the life of Jesus while he was with his disciples, while he was still here with us, I noticed that there are different reactions to Jesus, one of which is taken from Mark chapter 5. It says, the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. That's the first reaction. Jesus performed a miracle. A man possessed not by one demon, but legion, by a lot of demons. They saw the miracle, and the people in the village said, Jesus, leave us. We will lose our business. We will suffer. We are scared of you. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. The other reaction, Jesus, I would like to be your disciple. One of my greatest joys as a pastor is when I introduce Jesus to other people and they respond to acknowledging Jesus as their Lord. There's so much joy. One time I was in Cubao and I was trying to share the gospel to a young man. And after sharing the good news, sharing the gospel, I asked him, so would you like to accept Jesus? And he said, no. I asked, were you able to understand what I explained? Yes. You don't want to accept Jesus? No. Not interested. Every time we present Jesus, our responsibility is obedience. It is not the result. It is the work of God. While Jesus was walking here on earth, there will be different reactions towards his ministry. In fact, when we hear the word of God, there will always be different reactions. Either it is positive or negative. We as parents, who among you are happy to be a parent of your teenagers? You're excited to be a parent of your teenagers? Raising up teenagers is one of the most challenging time of their lives or our lives, maybe both. As they say, when you are raising up a teenager, there are two teenagers in the home. One is the real teenager and the other one is having his second teenager ring. So it's a real crisis in the home. But children will respond differently when we correct them, either positively or negatively. And one of the challenges that we have now is Google. The young people tend to know more. But you know what? I would like to challenge the young people that your parents, they have more experience. I think they are wiser. Listen to them. Respect them. And at the same time, parents, give a listening ear to your children. Because maybe we can also learn something from our children. But when we encounter Jesus, something has to happen. I would like to talk about three things. First, the hard heart. In Luke 7, verse 49, the religious people asked, who is this who forgives sins? Who is he who even forgives sins? Jesus was not simply forgiving the sins of people, but in reality, they were questioning because he was putting himself in the same position as God. When he forgave the sin of that man, Jesus was actually declaring, I am God. Not only was he forgiving the sin of the sinners, he was revealing himself. But the people were able to understand. Friends, UBC, let us continue to open our hearts to the Lord. My mom introduced me to Jesus when I was 6 years old. I'm so blessed to have such wonderful parents. My mom taught me how to tithe when I was 6 years old. More than what she says, I will see her praying at 4 o'clock in the morning, constantly. I've seen how my mom responded to God's call to serve Him. We have to look at our hearts because we can be in the church. We can have a tag Christian. But the Lord can see the very condition of our hearts. Not just because your parents are Christians, it doesn't mean that automatically you become a Christian. You have to personally encounter Jesus into your life. According to research, wealth is lost on the 3rd generation. But at the same time, it says that even faith is lost on the 3rd generation. My prayer is for my children that in their generation and the generation that will follow after them will have a fresh encounter with Jesus. In this world that we are living in, the way young people, the millennials, will pursue reality, it's based on experience. That is not my truth. This is my truth based on my experience. And the question is, how can we make the church relevant to the young people today? How can we help them understand the things of God? So we have to ask God that our hearts will change. Secondly, the heart with attachments. The heart with attachment. But as his words, he was saddened, and he went away grieving, for he was one who owned much property. There are some people who would be impressed, who would Jesus be impressed with, just like this young rich ruler. He got everything going for him. He was young, he was rich, he was in a position of authority, and he was willing to follow Jesus. And he asked, Jesus, what must I do to become your disciple? But Jesus would always look beyond the surface. Jesus would always look at the condition of the heart. People can deceive us. We can deceive other people. Now we are on a campaign period in the Philippines. People will talk and give promises. But Jesus can see the real condition of our hearts. Jesus saw that he was attached to his wealth. Wealth was his security. And Jesus said, sell everything that you have, give it to the poor, and follow me. Around 20 years ago, my wife and I, we had a savings. It was a lot based on my standards. Depending on who you ask, it's a lot for us. We saved up probably for 5 years. And I told my wife, and I told her, really, the Lord impressed in my heart to give away all of our savings 100%. And I was expecting expecting her to get angry because we worked hard for that savings. And she told me, actually, the Lord impressed in my heart about that a month ago, and I'm just waiting for you to confirm it. And I think we husbands, we should listen to our wives more often. Tama ba? The wife said yes, we should listen. And I was expecting for a harvest, financial harvest, after giving up that amount. 100-fold, 60-fold, double. Nothing came. I waited, nothing happened. And the Lord impressed in my heart, I'm just testing your obedience. Are you willing to give up? And I think more than anything else, sometimes when we preach or when we hear the message, we look at the external benefits when God would like to work on our hearts. Jesus was working on the heart of the young rich ruler. God looks at the heart. Next slide. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the pride of life is not the Father, it is of the world. Attachments. I am a family counselor, and one of the things that I've seen during counseling is this. People are so attached to unforgiveness. They can't let go of the pain. They have been betrayed. People have taken advantage of them for whatever reason, either real or perceived. And sometimes we are too attached to our pain. We are too attached to unforgiveness. And it keeps us from growing and knowing more God more. What is our attachment? We should only be attached to God. My mother is supposed to be a movie star. I don't know if you know that story. She's supposed to be a movie star. She's pretty, but she's really photogenic. My mom. She's very athletic. And she was on her last interview, and if you can still recall that production, FBN Pictures. Only the wiser will understand the FBN Pictures. She was on her last interview. But she encountered God in a crusade. And there was no turning back. She said, I would like to serve God. My father, he was a dentist. And he was supporting my mom. And my mom said, I will not marry a dentist. I will only marry a pastor. So my father resigned from being a dentist and became a pastor to marry my wife. That is the commitment of my parents, to serve the Lord. And there are so many attachments in this world. The gadgets, the people, the relationships. I work with people with gambling addictions, attachment to all of these things. But the moment we encounter God, something will happen. And finally, the heart that is fully surrendered. This is the kind of heart that God is looking for. One of the things that I do is I travel around the provinces and minister to the pastors. And when I was in Palawan 2 weeks ago, I did a seminar on how to recover from stress, from burnout, and to address the issue of depression. Do you know that pastors can also be depressed, can be burnout? Do you know that moms and dads can be depressed? In fact, in Japan, there's more suicides than homicide. 30 years ago, the average age of depression was 29.5, now it's 14.5. Children can get depressed. Now it's happening. But a heart that is fully surrendered will begin to encounter the favor and blessings of God. In Luke chapter 5, verse 11 says, they left everything and followed him. It seems unthinkable. What? These disciples of Jesus left everything and followed him because they saw something bigger. They saw something way more important. And that is the revelation that we should have about Jesus. Not just what we hear, but there should be a revelation of the greatness and the goodness of God in our lives and in our families. In Matthew 22, verse 37, Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. God is not simply asking us to love Him 99%. He wants all of us. To me, God should not only be number one, He should be the only one. In all expressions of life, God must be the only one. In business, in school, in work, in church, God must be the only one. When you are fighting with your spouse, your desire should be, Lord, we would like to honor you in our relationship. When you are trying to make that business work again, your intention is, Lord, how can I make you the only one in this business that I have now? In Luke 14:26, if anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. I would like to ask the young people who's present in the room, if you try to say to your father or mother, I hate you, what would be the response? Love? Excitement? Celebration? No way. In the Filipino culture, in the Chinese culture, respect is so important. And yet, Jesus seems to teach us to hate the people who are important to us. What was Jesus trying to say? Simply put, He was telling us that all these people, we should love them less compared to our love for God. Jesus must be the priority of all expressions of life. As I close, let me close with this. First, a real encounter, a real encounter with Jesus will result from honest to goodness, repentance. When we say repentance, it's not simply saying sorry or we grieve, it is a change of way. That is true repentance. Wherever you are right now in your situation, in your journey, I have good news. You can always go back to Him. The door is always open. The Father is always waiting. It is a change of direction. Secondly, a real encounter with Jesus will impact relationships positively. I was a youth pastor for many years. And probably until now, except for my white hair, I can still pass as a youth pastor. A young man was complaining to me about the persecution that he was experiencing in their home. And we would pray for him and rebuke the mother who's persecuting him. Because all along we thought that the mother was the persecutor of the family, the son. On his birthday, I was invited by the mother to to celebrate with the family the birthday of the son. After dinner, the mother asked to talk to me, and she said to me, "You know what, Pastor? I have nothing against my son attending your church as if it is my church. I have no problem my son being active in the youth ministry. But you know what? Ever since he became committed to your church, he was no longer working on his chores at home. He has become irresponsible. All along, I thought that he was being persecuted. I believe that we should be a blessing starting in our own home. And lastly, a real encounter with Jesus will change the way we view the ultimate purpose of life. A real encounter with Jesus should change everything. I will always tell my people in church, I pray that God will increase your level of influence and affluence, but always for kingdom building. I do a lot of premarital counseling for couples, and I would ask them, what is your purpose for getting married? And people would say, because we are mature, we are financially ready, so on and so forth. But I would always tell them, why not bring it to the next level? May your marriage be a witness of divine realities, of the relationship of Christ and His church here on earth. That our families must be a foretaste of heaven here on earth. I pray that God will bless you, but with a new perspective, with new realities, and that is all about kingdom building. Today, friends, I pray, by faith we will encounter who Jesus really is. Not just a prophet, not just a teacher. He is the Messiah, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, worthy to be worshipped, worthy to be honored.